And we're back. Let's get into the top gaming news last week. Let's start with our lead story. We have to talk about the accusations of foul play surrounding the record-breaking graded NES games auctions, right? I mean, this is just a whole convoluted mess. I mean, we've talked about it sort of in passing as like a funny thing, like, this game sold for $1 million, or we'll end the show with the N64 Mario selling for $1.5 million. And we, and it's just driving the prices of other retro games up. But, now everybody and their mother thinks they're sitting on a gold mine, right? Like you go to any garage sale or you go to Salvation Army or Goodwill, that they don't even want to sell you a sports game for a good price. They think that it's going to be worth $1 million at some point, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, all jokes aside, Goodwill and the Salvation Army now, if they see like video games, they don't, it may not make it to the floor because they have online auctions, right?
Yeah.
We talked about the Goodwill online auction.
Yeah, I brought it up last week because the guy at the counter was like, yeah, if we see something that we think is worth money, it's going to go to the online auction because it'll make more money for them. So, and I get that from their standpoint, they're like trying to make money to be able to sustain their business, right? And then sell, affordable goods at their store, which, I think is fine. But I mean, it all kind of comes from all of this hype and the bubble that's kind of been brewing and expanding. That's gonna break pretty soon.
So I know you really are passionate about this story and you really wanted to talk about it. I don't know that much about it. I know about the Carl Jobst video, which is a fantastic video. It's very long, so you should go, you go watch it. I mean,
yeah, he's got like a 50-minute video that kind of exposes all of the collusion.
It's between Wata Games and Heritage Auctions.
Yeah. So they're kind of the major players involved in all of this, and I guess we'll kind of set the stage with some of that information, not everything in the video, but if you really want to take a deep dive into it, Jobst did an amazing breakdown of it. He has a lot of videos like that on YouTube. This is the first one that I saw. I've subscribed to his channel now. Gonna start watching everything he does because he kind of does good investigative journalism, right? And he went down the rabbit hole and found out so much stuff that was linked between Wata and Heritage Auction, right? So,
but before you get into that, just for anybody who may not know who these companies, like what these companies are, like what is Heritage Auctions and what is Wata Games?
Right. So Heritage Auction is an auction house that was founded, I believe, in 1974. They've been around for a little while, and they do specialty auction stuff, right? So you can't just go and say, hey, I want to auction off my copy of my loose copy of Contra. They're going to go, no, right? It's got to be big ticket items and whatnot. And they most recently started getting into video game stuff. And Wata Games, just like VGA, that's the other company that does video game grading, right? So they will, for a fee, they will take your copy of your game, grade it, and put it in a plastic seal and put their branding and label on it. And it kind of has their grading system. It has their seal in it. And somebody from Wata has graded your game. This is what they've given it for like the game itself. And then also the seal on it, right? So if you have a sealed copy of whatever, they will grade the seal and they will grade the box. And those are like two different grades that are on there. That's slapped on the label. And ideally, having kind of a unified grading system and whatever else, if you see like, because it goes to like 9.8, I think is the highest you can get, 9.8 plus or something, I think. So if you see a game that has like a 9.0 or a 9.5 rating, it's in really good quality. Anything over a 9 is in like almost immaculate condition, right? 9.8 is the top of the top that you can get. So you see a 9.8, you go, oh shit, this is worth a lot of money. Maybe I will bid on this on top of whatever the game is, right? So if it's like Super Mario Brothers, which kept coming up and up in the news recently, right? That has a lot of historical significance. And also, these are really good condition games. So they were kind of netting these big prices. And also, not to mention that the copies were of a certain run, right? They do multiple runs of these games. So if you're talking about like a first run or a first edition, if you talk about comic books or whatever, that's important, and those are usually worth more because they were the original run. They're not reprints or like a second run or a third run, right? So they'll be slightly different. And there's ways to tell that. Rev A, I think Revision A is the original run of that stuff. So you ever see Rev A in the back of your cart, you know more or less that you have an original copy of that. All right. So that's who these two players are, right? There are many auction houses. There are, as far as I know, there's only 2 video game grading companies. There may be more bit players in the scene, but VGA's been around since 2008. Wata Games has been around since 2018. They are very, very new in the business, right? So that's just kind of something to note there, that they don't have the history. Heritage Auction House has the history to it. They also have some scandal, which we'll get into, but they have history behind it, right? It's like, when you go to a steakhouse, been around since 1909. Okay, it's got history, right? Katz's Deli, 1893. That has history. There's a reason it's been around for so long, right? You can trust in it that you're going to get a good meal. You should be able to trust in your video game grading company that you're going to get an honest grade and all that, but we'll get into all that. Just like a couple of things. The highest selling video game from 2017, July 2017, was a Mario Brothers copy that sold for $30K. I think we talked about it on the show. That was the highest selling video game sale that was on record, right? Higher than any NWC cart, higher than any world-class track meet, stadium events, right? Higher than anything else out there, right? That was the least on like record, right? And that was pre-Wata Games. Wherever, I don't know if that was sold through Heritage or whatnot. I don't think they were selling video games at that point, but we'll get into that. So then, after Wata comes into play, November 2019, Mega Man sells for $75K. July 2020, Super Mario Brothers sells for $114K. November 2020, Super Mario Brothers 3, greatest game of all time, $156K. April 2021, Mario Brothers, $660K. In July 2021, Legend of Zelda OG, $870K. And then the big boy, Mario 64, for $1.5 million, also July of this year. Couple days after Mario 64.
But you said something that just didn't make any sense.
Go ahead.
Which is what really should have sparked the controversy.
Mm-hmm.
April 2020, I think it was, the Super Mario Brothers that sells for $660K wasn't that the one with the original FOA Schwartz sticker on it?
FAO
right?
Schwartz.
The original Nintendo sticker that was ones that they sold the FAO Schwartz.
I believe
right?
so. Yeah, I believe that's the one.
I'm sorry. That's more valuable than any other game in history. Like, that's more valuable than N64, an N64 game.
Mm-hmm.
That's more valuable than Super Mario Brothers 3 or Super Mario World combined, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the original Nintendo seal sticker in great condition from FAO Schwartz when video games were a joke in 1985 is more valuable than any other video game that you can mention. I'm sorry.
Sure. Like, how does...
And I feel like that auction for that game should stand. That is worth, I don't want to say $1 million, but that should be worth more than any other video game.
I mean, I'll agree with you on that point.
History.
Whether it's $660K or some other price, certainly debatable. I would argue it's not worth that much, but yes, it's probably one of the prized possessions of anybody's collection if they had that in their collection, and that would be the crown jewel and should be worth the most amount of money. I would agree with you there, right? I don't think Mario 64 should be selling more than Super Mario Brothers, the OG one, but there's also that too. It's a little weird, but in just 4 years, right? From July to July, 2017 to 2021, right? Or actually, April was when the last Mario Brothers, like, you know, it went up. It went up 50 times. 50 times from Mario Brothers to Mario 64. And the highest selling game of all time. 50 times. 50 times. It skyrocketed, right? And that is now the record for. Well, actually, I think there's a $2 million sale that went out, but it was like. It's something a little special. That's 50 times in 4 years. That's insane. Nothing has ballooned up that much. No stock, no valuation of any company, no baseball card or whatever has gone up. No comic has gone up that much in that short a time, right? And why? Right? Why are these games going up so much, right? And the reason they're going up so much is because Wata Games and Heritage Auction House are working together. They are colluding. And if you watch the Carl Jobst video, he'll break down all the individual details into it. There is a little bit of speculation, but you can kind of connect the dots and see, because there's a lot of stuff that's apparent and obvious if you do a little bit of digging. And
well,
you know,
I just thought it was funny how Wata Games sort of came out with the statement saying, you know, it's untrue and all the accusations are untrue, and how they wish that that he would have came to them and asked them, you know, for sort of an interview so they can explain their side. And he tweeted out emails that he tried to, and they just, you know, went by the wayside and they ignored them. So he did alert them to his journalistic video that he was going to put out.
Oh yeah,
they had no comment.
I think you know that's the right thing to do. You let the company know ahead of time. Hey, I'm working on this piece. This is what it's going to be. It's going to come out. You know, do you want to comment? Do you want to clear anything up? And they said nothing. You're right. You know, it's kind of, they were trying to sweep it under the rug, and Jobst is like, I've got journalistic integrity.
I don't think they were trying to sweep it under the rug per se. I think because, you know, you do that when you're trying to do the right thing. To me, sweeping it under the rug is when you try to do the right thing, and then you find out that there's something going on, and you try to hide it, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Obviously, is them colluding, doing it on purpose.
Right.
At least from the you know, from all these reports of if these are true, they're purposely doing this. So it's not even sleeping under the rug. They're purposely doing this and didn't think they could get caught, right? So they didn't think that his video would get as much traction as it did.
Oh yeah, and it got a lot of traction. I mean, he did the research. And basically, like, where all this started, where all this culminated, was an episode of Pawn Stars where somebody came in with a copy of, I believe it was Super Mario Brothers or Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, one of the two. And
I think it was Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
Okay, so whenever they get something that they can make an episode around, which is the whole point of the show, you know, they get people to bring in things, and then they put the camera up and they pretend like, oh, we didn't know this was going to come in today, and they make a whole thing about it. So they knew this thing was coming in, and they get experts, quote unquote, ahead of time to like come in and evaluate it and all that. And Pat the NES Punk was actually asked to be on that show, to be someone to come in and be the expert in the matter, and he didn't want to have anything to do with it because he thought. Because they kind of gave him a little bit of like, look, here's what we want to do. This is the thing. We need you to come in and talk about this thing and whatnot. And he didn't want to do it. So they get Jim Halpert from Heritage Auction to come in to talk about the game. They get Dennis Kahn from Wata to come in and talk about this game, right? And they both big it up a lot. Oh, this game has historical significance. This game is in great condition. This could be worth whatever, so much money and this and that. Ultimately, that game goes to auction and sells at auction for a hell of a ton of money, right? And I believe that was the game that was bought by 3 different people, right?
3 different collectors. It was
3 different.
No, you know what? It was a Super Mario Brothers game because
it was the Mario Brothers game.
They sold.
Right.
It was the one that 3 collectors came together and they pooled their money to pay $660 for.
Right. And all 3 collectors are all related to Heritage and to Wata. Right. So, everyone was working together to boost the sale of this game and to get notoriety and to get some public press and then to, boost up the game sale, right? And that happened with, I believe, each one of the sales that we mentioned, all the Mario Brothers, the Zeldas, the Mario 64s and all that. This is calculated, right? They are getting press for their company, and Kotaku and Destructoid and The Verge and everybody else is buying into it hook, line, and sinker, and they do a face value story about it, and they don't look into the players. And when you start looking into the players of these big sales, you'll see that they're all related to Heritage and Wata.
To be fair, we did it at face value too. I mean, when the news broke that it sold for 600, a million,
right.
$1,050,000,
right?
We jumped into that too, right?
Well, I mean, sure,
we did it more so on shit, right? Like, come on, really?
Well, I mean,
collectors, and we don't want these things to go, the prices to go over the top, right?
Right.
That's when the bubble gets too big and then it eventually bursts.
Right. Well, we knew that these are not what they're worth, and someone's going to be left holding the bag at the end of the day, right? All these people that are buying and selling this stuff and whatever else, they're speculating on the market. They are not game collectors. They are not just like, oh, I had this in my collection, now I want to sell it, whatever. I love this game. I had it. I don't want it anymore. No, it's people coming into the mix who, either they come into a group that's a trust or whatever. They all pool their money together. They buy this game. They get some press about it, right? They artificially big it up, and then they resell it a couple months later, right? And they just spin it right around. And eventually what's going to happen, some schmuck off the street's going to buy a bunch of sealed copies of these games for a lot of money, and then the whole thing's going to burst, right? I think it's already starting to happen because this is out there now, and people realize that everything here is connected, right? All of these sales are connected. It's not just happenstance that, oh, yeah, I found this in my grandma's attic. I'm going to get it graded. I'm going to get it graded by Wata and then sell it, right? Because VGA has been around since 2008, and this never happened when it was just VGA, right? You get your game graded and whatnot. It would be an official seal. They do it out of 100. I think maybe 95 is the highest you can get or whatever. And it's like gold, silver, bronze, I think are the 3 different ratings. And then you get a number next to it, and it's VGA graded. VGA never had any issues with this. There was never any collusion. None of that stuff was going on. All right. And you may ask, and I think it's fair to ask, like, what does Heritage have to gain out of this, right? Well, they gain the prestige of being able to say, hey, we sold all these high-ticket items. And then that means that you're going to want to sell your high-ticket item at a Heritage auction because you can get a lot of money for it because they're good at what they do. But they're really manipulating the market in this way, right? Not to mention that Heritage gets a percentage of the sale. And the buyer of the item, whatever it sells for, right? If it sells for $1 million, there's a 20% buyer premium that's on top of that, which goes directly to Heritage auction, right? So that's another thing that's involved, right? And there's just so many more connections to it, right? The head, or one of the heads of Heritage auction, right, was involved in the $100,000 Mario Kart, right? He was one of the 3 people in the $100,000 Mario Kart. Jim Halperin, who runs Heritage Auction, who is also an advisor to Wata Games, right? So there you go. Not to mention that one of the heads of Wata, or the co-founders of Wata, right? That's kind of the latest piece to come out of this. One of the guys from Wata has been caught selling games on eBay, right? Which is that goes against company policy, right? Wata Games, Dennis Kahn from Wata Games is on record, and it's also listed on their website that employees of the company are not able to get their games graded, and they are not supposed to sell their graded games, right? So if they have video games and they get them graded, they're not supposed to do either of those things. They're not supposed to sell them either. the co-founder of Wata Games, is doing just that. He bought up a bunch of games right before Wata Games got started in like 2017. And Pat the NES Punk tells a story about how he was contacted by this guy. Oh, I wanna buy some games from you and whatnot. He goes, nah, I'm not gonna do that. I don't wanna sell, because he knew there was something shady going on, right? And this dude had a bunch of games that were all kind of sealed and this and that, and he got them graded on the down low, and he's trying to sell them on eBay for a ton of money, right?
I think Pat said that at one of the conventions he saw him buying up all the sealed copies of NES and SNES games.
But he also contacted he contacted Pat too, I believe.
Yeah.
And yeah. So there's that, right? There's a company policy set up that you can't get your games graded, and you can't resell those games, right? Because that's a conflict of interest, right? That is a problem. You're supposed to be an impartial third party company, and your job is to objectively grade these games, give them a value, slap them in a plastic case, and then send them back to the person, right? But they're doing everything in their power to manipulate the market and to make these games, skyrocket in price so that more people will come to them and get this stuff graded, because Wata gets a percentage of the graded game, right? So if they get a copy of Super Mario Brothers that's sealed, and they on face value, they say, okay, we think this game may be worth like, I don't know, $50,000, $100,000 or whatever it is, they get a percentage of what they value the game at as their cut, right? So it's kind of like a flat fee up to like $1,000, I think, valuation, and then after that, it's like 1,000 to 2,500 to whatever, and it just keeps going up. So the higher the game grade, the more money they're going to make out of it, right? Also, Wata is very inconsistent with their grading. It's not a science. There's a bunch of things that this Carl Jobst guy on YouTube points out. In particular, I think a Sega Saturn version of Tomb Raider, which has some actual like holes in the seal, and it's rated at like a 9.0 or whatever it is, right? So it's inconsistent based on what's listed on the Wata website, all right? So the whole thing is just terrible. It's not a a rising tide lifts all ships type situation. No, it's people trying to manipulate this, treat it like a kind of a stock market type situation, treating these things as like short-term investments, trying to make money off it. Wata and Heritage, getting all this press for all their video games, and all of these sales more or less have somebody on the inside who is either buying these games or selling these games or involved in some way that is just I'm going to assume illegal, right? I don't see how any of this could be legal, right? I don't necessarily know all the particulars of it and whatnot, but I do think this does need to be looked into, because everything that they're doing benefits Wata and Heritage Auction, and everybody is involved with everybody in this case, right? Whether they work for one company or the other, or they're on the advisory board for Wata Games. I mean, it's freaking terrible. It's terrible. But you got to watch the Carl Jobst video. There's a lot of good stuff. Watch Pat and Ian on the CU podcast, because they have been talking about this for a long while now, and they have some really good clips, and they kind of go into more detail than I think we can ever do. But
first of all, just to put a cap on this, I want to say, I think the day you told me that they grade repro games, is the day I didn't take them seriously. That right there should have told you just some shady stuff.
How do you grade a repro?
Repro. That doesn't make any sense.
Oh, this is a really good fake, because, I mean, none of it's real. None of it's real. You printed something off your printer, no matter how high quality it is. It's not an original print run. It has a different label. You got a different clamshell for it, all right? And it's got different insides inside.
So instead of $1.5 million for the sealed original N64 Mario game, all right, you get like 800,000 for a fake, a repro.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make any sense. Right? It just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It's worth $8, not
Right.
800,000.
Right.
So,
Oh,
all of this sucks.
yeah.
Just because it inflates, it just inflates the price for people who are just starting to want to collect. Right? Yep. People who are younger and now they're in their 20s and have some disposable income who want to start collecting because they're starting to get nostalgia. It just sucks for them. They jump into this and, prices are just so inflated.
Yeah.
For no reason.
Yeah. One final bit too, which is terrible, is that Wata or Heritage won't give out population reports, which is important because that is a running tally. So you have a copy of Super Mario Brothers sealed. You want to know how many copies are out there that are sealed and what their grades are. So you know that, okay, there's like 20 sealed games that are 9.5 or 9.8 or whatever it is, right? That's really important because the more of them that are out there, the less the price of the game is going to be, right? It's not one of one anymore. Now it's one of 20, right? And they don't put that information out because that's going to affect all of the people on the inside who are buying these games and trying to sell them, right? You're supposed to produce population reports so people know, you got to have transparency in the company, and there's zero transparency. They try and hide everything. They end up hiding the buyer and seller, which makes it very difficult for you to trace this down and figure out. But Carl Jobst did the work, and he figured out that a lot of these people are related or work for Wata or Heritage. So,
I want to say we're going to keep an eye on this situation. Right, the more the story unravels, we're definitely going to cover it on the show.